Hey YouTube, my name is Nick, and in today's exciting video, I'm going to be taking apart this GameCube, and the reason why is because many months ago, I ordered the ultimate GameCube mod chip, and that is known as the Flippy Drive. So it finally arrived, I think about yesterday or 2 days ago, and all we need to install this are a few different types of screwdrivers. This one is to open the GameCube itself. We have two Phillips head screwdrivers here, a bigger one for the bigger screws and the smaller one for the memory card metal pieces, and then this one is optional. It depends on if you have a Game Boy player or not, like I do. So moving all this stuff out of the way, the first thing we have to do to install the Flippy Drive is we have to take apart the GameCube itself. And so in my case, I have to begin by removing the Game Boy player. So to do that, you want to flip the GameCube onto the bottom, and you will notice these screws here. There's one down here, and there's one up there. So you just have to go ahead and unscrew those. I'm also taking out my memory card, because that is just going to be in the way. So once the screws are loosened, kind of like this, they're sticking out a little bit, all you have to do is pull, and the Game Boy player should detach from the GameCube. So we can set the Game Boy player aside for now, and now we focus on the main task, so we'll no longer need the flathead screwdriver. But we'll need that again later, obviously, to retighten the Game Boy player to the base. So the first screwdriver that you'll need is this orange one, or basically the game bit driver, as there are 4 screws on the bottom of the GameCube that you have to remove. They're in these 4 corners of the console itself. One here and one there, so you just go ahead and unscrew those. So the 4 screws that you remove from the GameCube should look like this, and you can just put those aside somewhere safe for now. Once you have those out, you want to place your GameCube back down, lift the top of it off, and now we're one step closer to getting this thing apart. The next thing that we'll do, and we no longer need the game bit driver for now it's all Phillips. The next thing that we'll do is we're going to remove the controller port. Like this, you just kind of pry a little from the sides and this will pop out a bit. And then you have to carefully remove this ribbon cable here. So you kind of just pull and it comes out. So set that aside as well. Now we'll tackle these small screws on the memory card ports, like I said, with the smaller screwdriver. So these pieces should come out, and I like to keep the screws with them just so they don't get lost. And now we have to take out all these bigger Phillips screws that are around the entire base, and that includes some that are behind this piece here, which you have to pry off in the same way as the front port, and it just comes right out. And as you can see, there's more screws back here, pretty straightforward. And there's some here as well. This fan also needs to be moved a little, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. We'll start with this side. And that is the last screw. Okay, so once you have all your screws taken out of the GameCube, all you have to do is put your hands around the disk drive and pull up, and it should come out. And you can just put that aside for a moment. And so what we want to focus on right now is this piece right here where the disk drive interface, because this is where you actually install the flippy drive. And there's a very specific way that you have to bend it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this aside right there. And now I'm actually going to unbox the flippy drive itself. So opening the box, this is everything that we get. We get the bracket for the one screw that will no longer be in the right spot. We get the ribbon cable itself to interface with the disk drive. And we also have the flippy drive itself. This is the actual mod chip, if you will. So here's how it works. So first, you want to take this and you have to bend it in a certain way. You start by seeing where these gold pins are. You have to kind of bend it in half very carefully, like this. Bend it down until it folds pretty nicely. You can just do it like that. You can see there's a little bend here. Then you have to bend it along this line. Like there's another line here that you have to bend it. So yeah, you kind of want to fold it up like this. I just pushed these two together and that's how I bent it. And then you also want to fold this side down. There's another like line right here. This side needs to fold down. So you do it like this. And you should get what looks like a bend like this, and then you want the same kind of thing on the other side of this ribbon cable. So you bend it like that, and then this. Okay, so you bend it like this. Bend it like this. Bend it down. Kind of like this. And then fold this end down once more. And then you should have what looks to be this W kind of bend. And all you need to do next, moving this stuff out of the way. This piece here, by the way, is a 3D printed, it's a 3D printed piece that is used for if you do not have your disk drive anymore for whatever reason. It basically keeps the ribbon cable flush with the connector here. It holds it in place. But the flippy drive creators suggest that you put an actual disk drive if you have it. And then basically you just want to put this in. You want to put this in such that the ribbon cables kind of wrap around this connector in the middle. One slight error with how I installed the ribbon cable is that it has to be facing towards you, like out from the GameCube, not like how I installed it. So I'm just going to reinsert this. And there we go. The next step is to have the ribbon cable wrap around this post like this. Another quick error to fix. If this part of the ribbon cable is bending up, you have to make sure it's pointing downwards when you install it. Much better. Now we have to reinstall the disk drive. So here is the optical disk drive, and there's this little gap right here, and that's where you want to slip this part of the ribbon cable through before you push it down onto the optical disk drive connector.
So you just want to bring it here and then feed it through this hole, just like that. And then you want to push the disk drive down into place, and this will ensure that this is seated properly. Much better than using just this 3D printed end cap, because this obviously weighs substantially more. So it's making good contact with the optical disk drive connector and basically acting as a pass-through for the disk drive, which allows it to continue to work. So the next step is to install the 3D printed mounting bracket, and this is so that you don't lose one screw. But basically, you just put it over these 3 holes here, close to the front of the disk drive. And what you need now is you need this screwdriver back, and you want to start grabbing a few screws. And the reason why we grab 3 screws is because, in case you haven't noticed, this screw hole is being covered. And so they made a nifty little storage unit for that screw so that you won't lose it. And as you can see, it's right here. And that's where you put the screw in. So the next step actually involves connecting the flippy drive to the ribbon cable. And the way how this works is that you have to make sure that this little hinge on the flippy drive is flipped up. And you want to line up the ribbon cable with this connector and make sure that both triangles are facing towards you as you plug it in. There we go. So once you have it inserted, you just push this flap down. There you go. Now you have it nice and secure. Just like that. You can see that this is fully connected. So you might have noticed that I added more lighting and the angle of the camera is kind of different. I need to explain what happened. So this wasn't as straightforward as I thought it was going to be, because the next step that was supposed to come was that I was supposed to put in 2 screws to hold the flippy drive into place here. 1 screw here, 1 screw down here. But if you notice down here, there's no screw hole. It's kind of like a slot. Like, it's not like there's a hole on the flippy drive for the screw hole, but there's no screw hole here. So what were you supposed to do? Well, when I checked the docks, the flippy drive docks, it states that if you receive the flippy drive in August or later, you're not going to get a screw included with your set, and it's supposed to just press fit in place. Well, guess what? Looking at these 2 little pieces I have here, these are part of the bracket piece. Well, I ended up filing these pieces off because they were kind of sitting at the top here. And when I tried to put this bottom end into here, it would get stuck like on the edge of the bezel there. So I filed it away, and now it works. And so here's the problem. If you don't have a Phillips head number 0 screw, you basically can't hold this thing in place. So I was trying to find a bunch of screws. I had a bunch of screws that were loose, and I was hoping to find a Phillips number 0, but I didn't have one. However, I actually did end up finding a Phillips number 0 screw. And guess where I found it? Well, believe it or not, I dropped a few screws into the case as I was doing this part. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to have any loose screws kicking around just in case it shorts something while it's in use or whatever. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be safe. I'm going to take it fully apart and just remove the screws that fell to the bottom of the case. Well, guess what? In case you forgot, or if you've ever taken apart a GameCube before, there are number 0 Phillips screws in the power supply. So basically, I took 1 screw out of the power supply, and that is the screw that I'm going to use to hold the flippy drive in place, because it was otherwise kind of like on an angle, and like it wasn't sitting right, like I couldn't get it to fit. So this was my solution for this problem. So basically all you have to do now is you kind of just push it into this slot, and then you have to line up this hole here with the bracket, and then you can start to screw it in place with this number 0 Phillips. This is not how you're supposed to do it. It's supposed to sit flush with this hole and like the little bracket on top, but again, that wasn't working for me, so I kind of modified the 3D printed piece a little, and now this should work. I just have to screw it into place properly. If you do end up doing exactly what I did to get this installed, which is by using the power supply screw, you will have to kind of thread it in a few times, because otherwise it doesn't quite, like it doesn't thread nicely, because for some reason the threads are smaller than the actual screw itself. But you'll see that after a few turns, because I already had to kind of twist the screw into place, you can see it's sitting as it should be in its spot, and the one screw is good enough. So now that that's out of the way, now I can finally reconnect the controller ports and almost put it back together just enough to test it, just to make sure that I didn't screw anything up in the process of doing this. So yeah, that's good. And that's how it's supposed to be. So yeah, initially there was, or with the older revisions of the flippy drive, there was a screw that's supposed to go in here and here, but on these new revisions they're not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to just sit in the case, but I didn't like how it was sitting in mine. It was kind of loose and not great, like it wasn't fitting. So I made do with what I had, and I shaved off the edges here, and I took a screw from the power supply, and that's now holding the flippy drive in place. Whatever. So it was extra work, but hopefully I didn't screw anything up, and I'm gonna put the controller ports back on, and then I will see if this works. I accidentally changed the color of the lighting, and so just like that, I got it back on. Oh, I keep touching that color switch. Okay, so yeah, I got it back on. The controller ports I just had to push down to get it in place. I'm not going to put the screws back yet. So before you plug your micro SD card into your flippy drive, you have to do a few things. First of all, you have to make sure that your SD card is formatted to be exFAT or FAT32, although exFAT is preferred according to the flippy drive documentation. So I have already done that. To format your micro SD card, all you have to do is right click it and then click format and then click start. And if you want to change it to FAT32, you can select it here. Okay, not in this case because mine is too large of a capacity, but yeah, then just choose exFAT is usually the better option. So once your micro SD card is done formatting, the next thing we have to do is we have to make a configuration file for the flippy drive. This is to add extra tweaks. But to do this, all you have to do is right-click in your flippy drive in the root directory and create a text document, call it config, and after the dot you want to change it to INI, so you'll need to have hidden files or file extensions shown, and you can do that by modifying some File Explorer properties. It might even be here where you can change that. Here we go. File name and extensions. This is what you want. You want to check this box if it's not checked off, so that you can rename the text file to the INI file. So anyway, we can just hide those options. So once you created this config.ini, you'll want to open it with Notepad++ or even just WordPad or just default Notepad, but I prefer Notepad++ just because it's better. And obviously there's nothing in here because this is just a blank document. So what you want to do is you want to navigate to this page, which I'll leave in the description. And what you want to do is you want to click these little boxes here, which will copy all this stuff to your clipboard. And then in the config.ini file, you want to paste it all. And now here's where we get to tweak this file for various different things. So the first thing of note is this boot mode setting. So there's two things that you can write here. You can keep it as normal or you can set it as bypass. let me explain what the difference is. So if you keep it set to normal mode, what will happen is when the GameCube starts up, it will launch the menu you always see when the GameCube starts, but instead of loading your disc, it will load the Cube Boot menu instead, which lets you run your ISO files that are on your SD card. And so that menu comes up and you can't run discs. But the way how you run discs when you're in Cube Boot mode is, so you have to power it off and then you have to hold, I think, L, and then it will let you override the Cube Boot and basically start the disk drive disk instead. So that's what normal does. Or if you change this setting and set it to bypass, which is what I'm going to do, it's basically going to disable the flippy drive by default, because I prefer to have access to my my discs firsthand, and then the Cube Boot afterwards or whatever, or Swiss for instance. And that's so that like, let's say I want to play my copy of Star Fox Adventure on my or no, not Adventure, I have Assault. Let's say I want to play my copy of Star Fox Assault from the disk drive. Well, then I can basically just put it in, and it will start up the GameCube like normal, close the lid, and it will just start playing from the disc. And then when I want to access the Cube Boot menu, all I have to do is hold X, and then boot from a DOL or onboard DOL, and then select Cube Boot, and then it will let me access whatever files that I backed up to the SD card, which I'm going to show you how to back up your games as well. So I'm going to turn on my GameCube now, and you'll see what happens when I boot it. So without even pressing anything, it will automatically open up the Cube Boot loader menu like this. And as you can see, the only thing I have on the microSD card right now is the Game Boy interface, which if I run it, then obviously it will work. I have my Japanese copy of Kirby and the Amazing Mirror inserted into my Game Boy player. So there you go. So you'll see all your game files on that screen basically, and that's pretty much it. So I took out my micro SD card and I changed the settings mode or whatever to bypass in the config file. And here's what happens when I turn it on. When I power it up, oh, my capture software crashed, but that's okay, because you can see it from the camera view that it loads up the GameCube BIOS like as if the flippy drive were not there. So if I were to scroll up with my Waybird, you can see that it says no disk, because there's nothing there. So like, even if I shut the lid, no disk. Okay, I take Pokemon XD out of my case, put it in the disk drive, and close it, obviously, and it will show up as expected, just like a regular GameCube would function. And there it is. And then this happens all over again. And so when you turn it off and turn it on and hold X, the flippy drive bootloader will come back. And if you want to access the Cube Boot, you just access the you access the boot onboard DOL setting, and then go to QBoot. Then taking the disk out, like you can see, it's not even spinning. QBoot loads, it automatically goes up, and there's my stuff. So that's how I'm going to have my GameCube configured. So yeah, that's what this setting does, boot mode. Next setting, Force was default. This basically, when it's set to 1, it pretty much just forces all the settings that you use in Swiss onto any game you run, I think even through the disk drive, which is pretty neat. This forces 480p as long as you have the hardware for it, so you need like either the official component cable, what's the other options? There's the one I have is the Retrobit Prism, the Eon GC. Like if you have one of those solutions and a DOL001 and you want to always force 480p, then you can set this to 1 and it will do it well, even on the GameCube menu as well, which is pretty neat. But I read that in the documentation that this could fail if you don't have the right IPL version, but just don't worry about that. It's best to just leave this at 0. Next setting is this. You can apparently disable the Memory Card Pro GC. The Memory Card Pro GC is basically just like a really expensive memory card that lets you hold your save files on a micro SD card that plugs into the memory card slot. But I don't have one of those, so I'm just going to keep it at 0 because there's really no reason to disable it anyway. This is used for waiting for GC video to initialize. So this is a thing with third-party component cables and HDMI solutions, but it's best to just leave this at 0 as well. Just don't touch it. You can ignore these sections because they're kind of in their testing phase. And as for this Wi-Fi stuff, I tried to get this set up on my own, like looking at their documentation, but it's not quite complete. I tried to set up my SSID and password to connect my my Flippy drive to my network so that I can FTP access my SD card, so that I don't have to take apart my GameCube every time I want to access my SD card and add or delete files. So it supposedly is working with the 1.46 version, but I couldn't seem to get it to work, and the instructions are not quite clear. So we're just going to leave this stuff alone as well. So basically all we really want to touch is just this, depending on how you prefer to have your GameCube set up. So once you're done with your config file and you're happy with the way it is, just save it, Control S, or you can click this little floppy disk icon if you're in Notepad++, or usually any other application works the same way. So once you've done that, then what you could do is you can load this this SD card with all your games here, and there's various different formats you can use. And these are the file types you can use here on your on the SD card. It can be an ISO, FDI, GCM, DOL, and DOL plus CLI. So if you place these in the root of your SD card, then these will appear in the QBoot menu. And so you insert the micro SD card right about here. Oh, on this bottom slot. And there you go. It makes a nice little click when you have it in place. So again, I'm going to put the lid back on just for testing. Oh, I need to... There we go. So in order to finish putting your GameCube back together, if you've been following what I've been doing and doing the same things, if you put the lid back on, you start obviously by taking the lid back off. And we'll start by putting in these pieces on the memory card ports. And so to do that, we're going to just pry on the edges of this. And we're just going to let this sit a little bit forward here. Because as you can see, we already have the ribbon cable plugged in. I'm just using that as a rest. But basically, all you want to do is screw these back in. And once you tighten those 4 screws, you can put this back in place by snapping it around like this. The 2 ends want to wrap around those posts like that. And now we can continue putting these screws back in. So you need these ones. I think there's 12 in total, but it should be more like 9 since we already put 3 in there for the actual flippy drive 3D printed mount. But you only need 2 here. Rotate it to the back, undo this piece by using the same technique you used to remove the front. And you want to put the 4 screws back in here. And this has to come out. Obviously, you can see what I did to remove that in order to get the last few screws in, but there's still the one on the corner here. This one goes here, I think. Let me see. No, it doesn't. Hold on. Because you have to screw that in afterwards. You have to put in these 3 screws first. Now you can put the side fan back in. Just like that. And then put in the last 2 screws. Just like that. Turn it back to the rear. Slip this back into place. Make sure it latches around. Grab the lid. Put it on. Just like so. And there you go. Flip it to the bottom. Put in the last 4 screws that go in the corners, which are these ones. The game bit screws. I'm also going to put my LAN adapter port cover back on. So grab your game bit screwdriver. Put the last 4 screws in. Then you can reattach the Game Boy player. Just by pressing it into the base of the GameCube. And then you just have to tighten the last 2 screws. And then you're done. And that's it. That is the GameCube fully reassembled. And it is now modded with the flippy drive. But we're not 100% done yet, as there's still one last thing that you might be wondering. So now I'm going to show you how to dump your game discs, like your legitimate copies of your games. So when I turn the GameCube on, I want to hold X. And I want to wait until I see the menu come up. The Flippy Drive bootloader, that is. So the next thing I have to do is I have to select Boot Onboard DOL. And then I want to pick Backup, but actually first I need to go grab my disc. So I came back with the game I want to dump, and I decided I'm going to dump my copy of Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. So I'm taking it out of the case and I'm placing it in my disk drive. So I shut the lid, and then I'm going to select A on Backup. And then I press A to continue. And now we wait. Oh wait, no, it says disk ready. X to dump in fallback mode, Z to dump in fast mode. So we're going to dump it in fallback mode since it says fast mode is disabled. So I'm going to press X, and now it's going to dump the disk. So now that the GameCube has finished dumping the game, you can press X and then start to exit. And I took out my game disc. And you'll see that when I load up Q-Boot, there's my copy of Pokemon XD right there. I'm just going to turn on this other camera just to show. So there's my copy of Pokemon XD, which I dumped. There's the GameCube disc drive. There's nothing in it. You can see on the screen, there's Pokemon XD dumped. So when I press A and start, it will launch the game. And as you can see, it works. But you can see from the phone camera that it's there. Now I brought it back on screen, obviously. But I can also continue from my save file, because I have my memory card inserted now. And there you go. It's like the last time I played. And here's all the Pokemon I had on hand. So yeah, that's that. And that's pretty much the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it interesting or helpful. Until next time.